spinners are less experienced for sure. There's a lad called Tom Hartley from Lancashire. Shoaib Bashir is a young spinner who's been plucked out of nowhere, really. He plays at Somerset. He's only got 10 first-class wickets at an average of 67, and they plump for him. Jack Leach is going to be the main spinner, but one of Hartley or Shoaib Bashir is going to have to go alongside Jack Leach. Maybe the England will try and play three spinners, but they've got Joe Root as well, who can bowl some spin. So definitely there's a gulf in quality and class between the spinners. But as you say, it's an opportunity for a young spinner to make a name for himself. And you will not get a better opportunity than playing in India if you're a young spinner. The pitches, well, you can't predict what's exactly going to happen because India have got a strong seam attack as well. Yeah. But the pitches are likely to spin. So if you're a young spinner, you're going to get more of an opportunity than you would in a test match in England.
I remember you saying to me at once, Athers, which since then I've noticed it more and more, is that we could talk a lot about spin in India, but if you were to do a list of the top 5 seam bowlers in the world, or top 10 seam bowlers in the world, you'd find room for a couple of Indian players in that. And as we pass the torch from Broad and Anderson on, it's slightly frustrating in a way, because you say, okay, there's a golfing class in spin, but they've got as good a seam attack as anybody in the world, haven't they? If
They've
they
got
play.
Very good seamers. Yeah, one of them is not in the initial squad, Mohammed Shami, who's got an injury, but might see him in the back end of the series. And somebody like Jasprit Bumrah would be as good as any seamer going around. England haven't quite moved on from Broad and Anderson yet. Anderson is still in there, still going. He's 40 or 41 now, and he's a survivor from the 2012-13 tour when England won their last, and he bowled brilliantly on that tour, but that's 10 years ago. He's got great skill and experience and nous. Whether he's still got it remains to be seen.
What's the story on him, do you think, Atherton? So I know you know him well. You played with him when he was a younger kid. Stuart Broad, who we've had on our programme, you could see the arc of his career. Finishes his last last appearance as a batsman with a 6, finishes his last appearance as a bowler with a wicket, Ashes, lovely narrative arc. We all love narrative arcs in sport. And kind of think, well, what are you doing? And because that was a good Ashes maybe to finish on. Is Anderson basically saying, maybe he doesn't care about this stuff, that he has to play till the next Ashes, otherwise he doesn't get... Because if he flames out with a niggling Achilles in the 3rd test in India, it'll be a shame, won't it?
It will be a shame. And I hope, having known him for a long time, been a huge admirer of his cricket and his bowling, I hope in my heart of hearts he can find it within himself to finish. I mean, nobody can beat the Broad finish, as you said, a wicket with his last ball, a 6 with his last hit, and the winning test match, albeit not quite getting the Ashes. But he's going to find it very difficult to top that. But I hope he can go out in a high. But he's quite a different character to Stuart Broad, is Jimmy. Stuart Broad loves the adulation, the big crowd. Actually, Jimmy is quite a shy guy. He's not really like that. I think he's playing on for the simple reason that he loves playing. And that love has not diminished yet. He still feels he's got it within himself to perform at that level. He had a difficult summer, but before that was bowling beautifully. And he still feels he's got it. And while he still feels he's got it, he wants to keep on playing because he wants to kind of stretch it out as long as he can because he knows you're a long time retired. So they're quite different characters. I hope he can find a good finish because his career, he's one of the greatest cricketers England have ever produced and deserves a good finish.
Will they go into this tour with that slight happy-go-lucky, it's all about the process, cricket's fun, and not, let the result take care of itself? I'm being slightly flip, but you know what I mean. They do care about winning.
Right. They will go in with that attitude.
Will they? Yeah.
And that, of course, is the key thing here. Can Basball work in India under these conditions, against these bowlers, against this team, which is so strong at home? Can England go out and play with the same joie de vivre? Who knows is the answer to that. They're going to give it a go because that's just so ingrained now into the DNA of this side. It's impossible not to see them give it a go. Although I hope it's tempered with some common sense. I've done a piece with Kevin Peterson, who for the paper, I don't know when it'll go out, maybe at the weekend, but talking about his great innings there 10 years ago. And he made the point that the bedrock of his success was a solid and strong defence, which he had faith in, and which then allowed him to express himself and attack. So, it has to be slightly tempered with an ability to stay in. You can't hit all the sixes that they want to hit without staying in. So, but they're definitely trying to approach it in their own unique style.
Now, our Cricket Mad editor Hussein told me this fact, Athers, which I can't really believe. You only played one test.
Yeah, bizarre.
In India, and it was part of a kind of tour from hell, the '93 tour. Is that true? Why was it just one?
Well, a number of things. If you get the time, I know you're a busy lag, Stig, but I did a little documentary called Spin Wash, which you can see on YouTube. And I've got footage from that tour of '93, dressing room footage. So among the favourite things that I've done, and it really contrasts how cricket was and how cricket is now. But you're right, that was just the only tour in the time that I played. I played for England for 13 years. I played more than 100 test matches, played one tour in India and just one test because I missed 2 tests of that tour with illness. And it's symptomatic really of how cricket was. India wasn't the destination that it's thought to be now for cricketers, with the IPL and all the money in the game. Everybody wants to go to India, whereas it just wasn't. That's not how it was. In the early 90s, and the strongest teams in cricket were West Indies, Australia and South Africa, and that's who we played all the time over 5 test matches. So I played relatively few against India, and the consequence of that change post IPL is that India now is very much the draw card, both in terms of the economics of the game. If you play India at home, you get a big television deal out of it, and the players want to go to India all the time. So it's very different.
And how was that test match for you? Can you remember
it? We got beat. It was the end of a disastrous tour. It was a 3-0 spin wash. I was involved in an absolutely dramatic and disastrous run out with Alex Stewart, where we both ended up at the same end. It was pretty shambolic, but funnily enough, it was one of the tours that you look back on with a great deal of fondness because it was so chaotic and so disastrous, and everything went wrong. But it was memorable, put it that way.
And presumably you come back better mates, unless you run someone out, better mates with the people that you went with. Are these bonding things?
Tours are very different then. That was a long tour, 3 or 4 months. And not only did you play the test matches, of which there were just 3, we had a one-day series as well, but also played lots of other games and travelled around the country. There happened to be an airstrike on in that particular few months, so we went everywhere by train, 18-hour train journeys to Calcutta for the first test. So it was the kind of tour where it brought people together and kind of bound you in a funny way. But in this tour, England are turning up to Hyderabad 3 days before the start. Yeah. They're in Abu Dhabi for 10 days now. Probably in the big long break between the second and third test, they'll probably go to UAE for a bit more golf or something. It's very different to how it was.
It is indeed very different. Do you want to offer a prediction, Athers? We never hold you to these things.
I think India will win. They're just very hard to beat at home. I think the difference in the spinners will determine the series. Sadly, I think it'll be an India win. But, it should be a fun thing to watch. This clash of 2 styles, again, very inexperienced spinners from England trying to, bowl against some of the great players of the moment. Regardless of what happens, it's going to be interesting to watch and report on.
Well, listen, I look forward, as ever, to reading it reading your stuff in the Times. One of my favourite things in the Times. Athers, great to speak to you. Thank you for joining us.
And you, Steve.